Hey, what's up guys, my name is Charlie. Today we're going to be doing some more requested reaction videos, and this video was requested by Wolverale12, and it's going to be Johnny versus Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Oh boy, I remember playing Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I believe I played the PlayStation 1 version, but then it was released on other consoles. In fact, it was released on a shitload of consoles from what I remember. But one I remember the most, it was on the Xbox 360, on the arcade store. And it was like HD remastered or something like that. So you could play this game on the Xbox 360, and it was pretty swell. It was pretty decent. I really enjoyed it. Even though I played it on the PlayStation 1, it was totally awesome to play it on the Xbox 360 as well. So it's good that the game has been released on so many other consoles. But yeah, let's check out the video, shall we? Let's go. Oh boy. Konami, they were the shit back in the day.
Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I love this game. It's no secret.
Yeah,
the
game's great.
The number of times I've replayed this game, whether I'm trying something new out, or recording for a commentary or a let's play, or just to get the most out of it. Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
I wonder if it's
right up
available for
games
Nintendo
like Super
Switch.
Metroid or Sonic 3 and Knuckles as being one of my absolute favorite games of all time. As I mentioned in the Castlevania 1 review, this was the game that got me interested in the Castlevania franchise to begin with, and was the very first Castlevania title I ever completed. Symphony of the Night was released for the PlayStation 1 in 1997, but I
Damn,
wouldn't be aware of it until the
1997,
mid-2000s,
fuck
but
me.
despite that, I fell in love.
It makes me feel
I
old.
wasn't an avid Castlevania fan back then.
Oh,
the
God.
game was just that awesome to me. However, in the end, is it still something that I could recommend to you guys? I mean, it's quite obvious that I love the game. But the Symphony of the Night really changed the formula enough to get the interest of those who weren't even interested in Castlevania to begin with.
All right, let's
It's
do
a great
this thing.
start if you
Symphony of the
aren't
Night
familiar
is a
with
direct follow-up to
Castlevania
Rondo of
games.
Blood, the original one on the PC Engine. Okay, let's back up a bit. So they didn't bother releasing this game for the PlayStation 1, but had no issue releasing the next game on the system? Doesn't that seem a bit, I don't know,
Bizarre.
odd?
Yeah, just go with
I'm
it.
looking at
It's
the
a game
PlayStation 1
company.
original for a majority of this video, but I'll also
They
give the
did this
Japan
back in the
exclusive
day,
Saturn
always
version some attention, as
didn't
well as the
release the
version on the
good
PSP you
versions.
can unlock in the Dracula X Chronicles. Our story begins with a horribly inaccurate retelling of the final boss encounter with Richter
It's
and
just,
Count Dracula.
I believe,
This
horrible
Richter is capable of dashing,
dialogue,
super
I
jumping,
believe.
shoulder charging, ground sliding. He has fluid mid-air controls, and he can do that whip dangly thingy.
Yeah,
His
that's pretty
Hydro
cool.
Storm item crash is now capable of destroying Dracula, both forms, in about 10 seconds flat. And if you still somehow manage to lose to Dracula with these upgrades, Maria jumps in, summons her animal buddies, and makes Richter completely invincible for the rest of the battle.
Damn, that's pretty cool.
And that's how I easily destroyed Count Dracula once and for all. That's bullshit! Thanks to this wall of text, we're told that 4 years after the events of Rondo of Blood, Richter mysteriously vanished, with Castlevania suddenly materializing out of thin air. Maria, now a mature teenager, sets out to locate her missing friend, but our real protagonist of this game is Alucard, the very same from Castlevania 3, only now 300 years older, and let's just say he's looking damn good for his age. Because of the disappearance of Richter, Alucard is awakened from his slumber to get to the bottom of things, and fuck me, did he ever get his beauty sleep. The only thing these two have in common is their names,
dope.
because this Alucard is nothing like he was in Castlevania 3.
It's the same in
Where
Resident
do I
Evil
begin?
1.
Okay.
I guess that's
Alucard's main choice of
recycled.
attack is swords. He can also equip shields to block projectiles, but I rarely find the need to use that unless I feel like utterly crippling the game. More on that later. When you start the game off, Alucard is equipped with a lot of shit that makes very short work of any enemy.
Yeah,
in
it
the
was
path. Soon after
badass.
meeting the Grim Reaper,
You get
he
it all
takes your
taken
stuff
away.
weakening Alucard
Oh,
substantially.
I know,
but you'll
it's
soon
such a
find yourself
fucking
collecting various
tease.
weapons via exploration or item drops from defeated enemies.
It's
Some
such a
weapons, besides
tease.
packing better stats, can also perform certain actions when doing a specific button arrangement. So it's always fun to see if the new weapon you discovered is more than meets the eye. Even without a weapon, Alucard is still capable of using his bare hands as an attack and mid-air kicks, both of which can be devastating and quick with careful timing and positioning. Complementing this is Alucard's overall control, which is almost wickedly smooth, even more so than the likes of Simon from Super
Smooth like
Castlevania 4.
butter.
Awkward jumps across tiny platforms are a thing of the past, and certain enemies can no longer take advantage of it, like Medusa heads or Fleamen. Alucard can't strike in multiple directions, but he can swing his weapon toward the ground, which is enough for the likes of frogs and any other annoyingly short
Fucking
enemy that gave the
frogs.
Belmonts a hard
Fucking
time. But it doesn't just
frogs.
stop with swords. Alucard is also capable of using sub-weapons just like the Belmonts, but he can't perform any item crashes. With the likes of the Holy Water and a few other sub-weapons being as useful as they were in Castlevania 1 and 3, I don't mind that too much. There's also a bunch of one-use items Alucard can locate all across the castle. I don't use them often
Peanuts.
personally, but I find the likes of the screen nukes great for taking down bosses. The top left bar you see there is Alucard's magic meter, which lets him perform certain abilities by inputting certain button combinations, in a way very similar to performing special attacks in a typical fighting game. You technically have access to all of your spells right from the beginning of the game, but unless you're using a strategy guide or if it's your first playthrough, you won't know the proper button inputs unless you buy the corresponding magic scroll from the librarian you meet in the long library. Thinking about it though, I guess there's nothing stopping you from saving the game, buying a magic scroll,
The save
memorizing the
system's
button
pretty
sequence,
cool.
and then resetting the game to save yourself some cash. All the spells vary in terms of effectiveness, but I absolutely love doing Hellfire to teleport past big threats, and to cause tons of damage with the meteor variation of the attack.
I also
can now
believe
see
this
why
is on
Dracula can't
Steam
get
as
enough of
well.
spamming this attack
I
in
remember
earlier
playing
games.
this on Steam, I'm
Soul
pretty
Steel is
sure.
another one I can't get enough of. It costs a lot of magic to use, but
Remastered
it damages everything on the
version of
screen,
this game.
and gives you health for everything that was hurt,
HD
including inanimate
enhancement.
objects like candles. Your magic bar slowly refills when it's not in use, so while you can't go nuts with a bunch of spells at once, unless you have some spare magic potions to guzzle down, you should always have access to one in the first place. While Alucard's all alone in his adventure, he does gain assistance in the form of familiars he can acquire after finding them. Most of them are pretty aggressive, attacking anything that's a threat within proper range, but some like the
pretty
fairy
good
are more of
feature.
a supportive kind, healing Alucard when he's low on health assuming you have a spare potion in your inventory, or removing status conditions like petrification with a giant swing of a hammer. The second
That's
fairy
pretty
you can get in
cool.
the Saturn and PSP version of the game even sings you a song if you sit down in a chair long enough. Why? I don't know.
Just
If
go
I'm not
for it.
using the fairy,
It's a
I'm
cool
likely
little
using the
Easter egg.
sword familiar, which gets stronger with each enemy it kills. And last but certainly not least, Alucard can transform into certain forms after locating the proper power-up. The one you'll probably use the least is the mist transformation, because it's really only needed to get past certain gates that block your path. It does make for a great way of dodging very large attacks though, since you're completely invulnerable when you're in this state, but you can't do much else like this. The wolf transformation isn't too remarkable when you first get it. You can move slightly faster on the ground, but you really don't have a means of attacking
I believe
while
you can
running.
turn into a
That
bat.
all changes
I'm
when you
pretty
get
sure.
the power of the wolf, however, and
Yeah, there
certainly
we
rolls
go,
a pretty
the-
lackluster transformation.
I think
is
you
now
can
a
turn
speeding
into a
bullet
bat,
train
it's
that
pretty
destroys
cool.
everything in its path, and it's great for blazing down long corridors. My favorite one though has got to be the bat.
Yeah,
It's odd
there we
that
go, the
Alucard has
bat.
to find this ability when he can do it naturally in Castlevania 3, but I guess sleeping for 300 years will make you forget, even though he's now vastly superior to what he was back then. Whatever. One of the techniques the bat can perform is the wing smash, which causes Alucard to blaze across the screen, totally invincible while doing so, damaging anything in his way. You automatically
Yeah, that's
transform
pretty
back into
cool.
normal after performing it, but in the Saturn version, it's indefinite until you run into a wall or run out of magic. I love this
Wow.
attack. It's so much fun to use.
That's
So we
overpowered.
have swords, weapons with different properties, classic sub-weapons, one-use items, spells, familiars, and transformations. Alucard just might be the most versatile protagonist I ever had the pleasure of controlling in a 2D side-scrolling action RPG. Yeah, I guess I should get into that. Besides
certainly
having
has
all sorts of
evolved
ways of
over
dishing out
time.
pain, Alucard can also gain experience by killing enemies. It's very standard stuff. The more you level up, the stronger and tougher Alucard becomes.
Obviously.
You can adjust your stats by equipping armor and accessories you can find in the castle, and you can increase your total health and number of hearts by either defeating bosses or by finding the upgrades inside pottery and whatnot. Because Alucard is so handy at what he does, and because of the RPG elements brought to the table this time, this game can get almost ridiculously easy in a rather short amount of time.
And it can
Early
get
on, there are
very
quite a number of
complicated.
enemies and bosses
I
that can
remember
give you a
it
run
being
for your
really
money.
complicated.
And once you start getting some
With
decent equipment,
stats
the
and
game's challenge starts
weapons.
falling like a stack of dominoes. Watching Alucard take down enemies that gave the Belmonts a hard time is so surreal to me now that I've actually played the previous games in the series. If you enjoy a challenge, then you're only getting that from this game via a challenge run or by limiting yourself in terms of equipment. I did a playthrough where I intentionally abused a few tricks with the werewolf transformation that allowed me to get to areas earlier than intended,
Wow.
and even then, thanks to the spells I can rely on with Alucard and the true power of his fists, I still managed to complete the areas and defeat the bosses fairly comfortably.
Nice.
This game is very easy to break if you really want to go that route. There are some weapons and equipment that are just flat out disgusting. Some of them require going out of your way to obtain, but some of them are as easy as walking into a room and nabbing it, like the shield rod, which combined with the shield can result in a different attack depending on what shield you currently have equipped. Try it out with the Alucard shield when you get the chance, and I'll be there to pick your jaw up from off the floor. Since Maria believes that Richter is within the walls of Castlevania, the entire game takes place inside the castle itself. This isn't your
boy.
typical castle, however. There's plenty of different environments located in here, like the entryway,
This
a
isn't a
laboratory,
castle,
a gallery,
this is a
the
fucking
outer walls,
maze.
a library, underground caverns,
This
a
is the
chapel, a
gates of
dungeon,
hell.
a coliseum, catacombs, the godforsaken clock tower, yeesh! And if you're playing the Saturn version, you also have an underground garden and this rather boring prison area that doesn't last very long. Really, the fact that the entire game takes place inside the castle doesn't mean shit in terms of aesthetical variation.
This castle is a creature of chaos. It may take many incarnations.
Oh god.
Exploring this vast architecture isn't done in the traditional classic Castlevania method. We're actually going back a bit to how things were done in Castlevania II Simon's Quest. All these areas are interconnected, and proceeding to the next
That's where
area is
began
all
the
about fighting
nerd.
bosses and scoring
Castlevania
upgrades Alucard
sucks.
can use to explore deeper and
The
deeper into
beginning
the
of the
castle.
nerd.
There's no levels per se, there's no lives, there's no scoring system, no
Oh,
timer,
this
none
game
of that.
sucks.
I'm getting a sense of deja vu. This style of progression and exploration is very often
First
compared to
angry
the likes
video
of
game
Metroid,
nerd episode.
Super Metroid
Can't remember what it
specifically.
was. He was like,
Symphony of
this
the
game
Night is considered
sucks.
to be a pioneer of this sort of design
Castlevania was
alongside with Metroid,
that's what I remember.
coining the term Metroidvania.
It's been a long time.
With my love of Super Metroid in mind, it's no surprise that I fell in love with how Symphony of the Night was handled. Exploring for upgrades, getting stronger and stronger while doing so thanks to the RPG elements, the joy of locating hidden areas for equipment, a map function that does a great job of keeping track where you're located. You guys have all heard this before, and this game excels in that category. You have
Yeah,
these
the
warp
map
rooms that you
was
can use to quickly
really
teleport to a
complicated
previously visited
for
area
me.
in the castle.
I was getting
so
lost all
backtracking
the
shouldn't be too
time.
much of a problem if you're heavily against that sort of thing. I kind of wish we can choose which warp room to travel to though, because constantly warping to get to the one area you want to go to is admittedly a bit annoying, despite
Yeah,
not
it's a
taking
bit
very long to begin
repetitive.
with. The main goal in Symphony of the Night is to find the cause of Castlevania returning prematurely and destroy it. But further exploration reveals that Richter Belmont has turned to the dark side and claims ownership of Castlevania itself. Maria insists that Richter must be under some sort of mind control and pleads Alucard to snap him out of it. There's nothing stopping you from heading straight to Richter and, kill him, but doing so will get you the bad ending. Searching in the right area with the appropriate upgrades will help you find the means to restore Richter back to normal, which includes a boss fight with Maria if you're playing the Saturn or PSP version of the game. You know, I understand she just wants to test me to make sure I'm capable of saving Richter, but this chick's out for fucking blood. With the special item you receive from Maria, you can destroy the hidden power that's controlling Richter, which turns out to be none other than the deader-than-dead priest Shaft. And just when you think the game's over,
Shaft.
this suddenly happens.
Well, he
Shaft summons
definitely
the
did
second
give you the
castle, which
shaft.
is just like the original, only upside down! Oh no! I shit you not, there's a whole other castle to explore, and it's upside down.
Yeah, I
Now
remember this,
Alucard needs to
everything
explore this
upside
inverted
down.
mess to completely stop
It
the
was
resurrection of Count
fucking
Dracula.
horrible.
Doing so requires Alucard to collect pieces
Gets
of
your ass
Dracula
handed
and
to you.
stopping Shaft at the center of the reverse castle. Does that ring any bells? Yeah, it's just like Simon's Quest, only with less oak stakes and typos. Now, I love this game, but even I'll admit that this is a pretty disappointing way of extending game time. It's just the first castle, only upside down. and a
Play
different
the
coat of
game
paint.
again, just upside
Since you
down.
have
Yeah,
all of
that's
Alucard's movement
not.
upgrades upon entering this place, you're free to explore the inverted castle in any way you choose.
Maybe a
though you need
bonus
to defeat 5 specific
Easter egg or
bosses in
something
order to
like that
finally
would
reach
be
Dracula
open up
himself.
to extend the
Now,
gameplay.
usually I'm totally for that sort of thing, you know, having a bunch of possible ways to explore the castle, having the choice to ignore this or that, all that kind of stuff. But even with the likes of the wolf transformation and the bat transformation, the inverted castle isn't that fun to travel through for me. Maybe that was the point, but what were once areas that offered their own ways of challenging Alucard progressively, now suddenly feel like broken pieces of level design that you constantly need to use transformations to travel across safely, which kills the overall pace in ways you couldn't possibly imagine. The castle is brimming with new enemies, both of which hit hard and are plentiful, but a lot of them can be simply ignored or taken down easily because of how versatile Alucard is, especially at this point in time. It's very possible to ignore a majority of the inverted castle and head straight for the bosses that need to be defeated in order to reach Dracula, but you're not going to know where exactly to go on your first playthrough. You're going to explore everything, leading to encounters against the likes of Beelzebub, Lord of the Flies, or zombie reincarnations of the original cast of Castlevania 3. There's always something to look forward to, even if it doesn't help you get close to Dracula, but the inverted castle is more of a chore than stimulating. Trying to complete the map is a pain like no other as well. Mapping out every room in the reverse clock tower is a nightmare because of all the damn Medusa heads that swarm the vertical shafts.
Fucking Medusa
I don't have
heads.
to worry about things like bottomless pits because of the design of the game itself, but constantly getting petrified by just coming into contact with the likes of the yellow Medusa heads, and the knockback that sends me tumbling down the tower undeniably infuriates me.
Oh,
There are also
boy,
times
fuck
where you have to
Medusa
get Alucard
heads.
to touch very specific spots on the floor
They're
or
always
ceiling for it to be
everywhere in every
registered on the
single
map, and you
Castlevania
need to
game.
have a certain amount of the map covered to get the best ending in the game. If the constant use of transformations to just explore the castle in the first place didn't slow the pace down, this brings it to a screeching halt. And for the love of God do I get sick of the final toccata, which is the background theme that plays in no less than 6 areas of the inverted castle. By itself, it's a musical track that I think does a good job of conveying a sense of approaching danger, but when you hear it for the 68th time in a new area,
Yeah.
you'd wish this game had the option for custom soundtracks.
Just mute the game and
The
play
first
your own
castle was
music like I
jam-packed
did.
with a bunch of musical variety. Every area contained a unique piece of music
But it
that did
gets
a
a bit
wonderful
of a
job in giving the specific
slow
area its
down
own
after a
identity.
while.
In fact, despite the overuse of the final toccata in the inverted castle, I fucking love this soundtrack. Except for the credits theme, I don't quite understand what's going on there. There's more music in the inverted castle than the final toccata, and I love the likes of Lost Paintings, but you don't hear it nearly as often as you do than the final toccata. Just saying the name of the musical track makes me cringe a bit. Okay, so I think I spent enough time on the music, so how about those graphics, man? Sweet mother of Alucard, this game looks great.
Graphics were pretty great,
Symphony of the Night is oozing with so much detail that I can't possibly explain it all. The enemies come in all shapes and sizes when they're not being reused from Rondo of Blood. The pizzazz of how attacks and bosses are animated, the awesome sound design, the fact that a lot of things fucking explode in a blaze of glory when killed, which I can't begin to tell you how satisfying that feels to me. And most importantly, I just love how smooth Alucard's sprite animations are. I didn't think much of the game when I first laid eyes on it years ago, but one thing that I did find awesome immediately was just how fluid Alucard's movement was.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I find myself backdashing all over the goddamn place because it's just that much faster than running, and I can't help myself.
Michael
But I still
Jackson
greatly admire how well Alucard is animated.
It's moonwalking.
Dare I bring up the voice acting? Its reputation is
the
for
voice
just how awful it
acting.
is. Everyone
What
reads
is
their
a
lines
man?
with the enthusiasm of porn stars, and it leaves me wondering just how in the blue hell was this considered passable?
Magnificent! But now feel my unbridled wrath.
Humorously enough, though, I actually like the performance of Robert Belgrade as the voice of Alucard. It's not perfect, obviously, but he can sound legitimately badass at times.
Demon, death is too good for you.
The entire cast was replaced for the PSP version of the game, which a lot of people were pretty upset over considering just how cheesy the original voices were.
It's not as cheesy as the Resident Evil
just
voices.
a bit wooden at times. The Saturn version of the game is a little rougher around the edges in terms of, well, pretty much everything. Some graphical effects don't look as pristine here as they did in the PlayStation version. There's more loading areas in places that didn't need to load separately in the original, in addition to the loading times being longer in general, and there's a bunch of slowdown. The Sega Saturn was well known as a 2D powerhouse, so the fact that this version is technically inferior to the PS1 original is all the more baffling to me. It's still a great game, and I have no regrets spending the money needed in order to add this to my collection, but for your first time playing Symphony of the Night, try out the PlayStation version or the Xbox Live Arcade version, which is
That's
the same
one
thing
I've
with no load
also
times,
played,
no
but
slowdown,
I'm sure this
and an
game's
ugly
also
filter
on
that you can
PC as
thankfully
well
turn
on
off.
Steam.
When you complete the game with Alucard, you can replay the adventure with Richter, who has all those fancy acrobatics he had in the beginning of the game. There's no story or RPG elements in this mode. Your goal is to simply get to Shaft in the inverted castle and give him a good hydro storm, which is unbelievably powerful in this game. It's pretty much an open-ended classic Castlevania experience with none of the bullshit and fluid control. Owners of the Saturn and PSP versions can also play as Maria Renard. In the Saturn version, Maria can do all sorts of things like martial art kicks, triple jumps, and she can use her animal friends to perform special attacks that can really pack a wallop, especially with good aim. Her movement feels a bit stilted at times, particularly when you're trying to dash instead of walk, and her default projectile attack isn't as reliable as Alucard's sword or Richter's whip, even when fully charged. The Maria you can play in the PSP version is more in line with how she handled in the original Rondo of Blood, complete with birds as a default attack, and animal buddy sub-weapons and item crashes. She's very fast on her feet, and can perform this dash maneuver with a quick press on either the left or right trigger, so she's definitely agile. Unfortunately, her overall offense is pretty miserable. Her attacks just can't compare to the likes of Alucard, Richter, or even her Saturn counterpart. She's essentially the hard mode, and beating the game with her is all a matter of how quick you can be with your fingers and sub-weapons. At this point, if you're still unsure on why I absolutely cannot get enough of this game, then the next best thing I can tell you is to simply try the game for yourself. Just like my opinion on Super Metroid,
You gotta play
there's
the game
not
to
much I can
understand
find
the
wrong
game.
with this game that makes me give repeated playthroughs any second thoughts. The weakest part of the game is definitely going through the inverted castle, but I love how this game plays so much to not really care in the long run. No game is perfect, but this one is certainly a hell of a lot of fun. If you guys happen to know of any other games that are structured comparably to Symphony of the Night that's not a Castlevania or a Metroid game, please let me know, because this is what I call a video game, and I give it the highest recommendation I can possibly muster.
So go on, what are you waiting for? Give this game a shot. You can download a demo off Xbox Live. It's on the PSP either via the Dracula X Chronicles or the PlayStation Network store, so you can also play the game if you have a PS3. Or if you're feeling really nostalgic, get a physical copy for your PlayStation 1. Oh, the PlayStation 1. You know what? Next time we meet, I'm going to do something I've been meaning to do for a very long time. A console review. I mean, why not? This thing pretty much defined my gaming experiences from the mid to the late 90s. I'm going to go work on that. You go play Symphony of the Night.
But you probably won't listen to me anyway, will you?
Okay, that's the end of the video. The end, I'm guessing. I stopped myself a few times for recording too much footage. Okay, that's the end of the video. Johnny versus Castlevania Sympathy of the Night. I gotta say, I played the PlayStation 1 Castlevania Sympathy of the Night, and it was totally awesome. Played it for the Xbox 360, Totally awesome, and I'm pretty sure it's for PC on Steam as well. I can't remember, it might have been removed from the Steam store, but I do remember playing Castlevania Sympathy of the Night on Steam. But yeah, it's a good game. I recommend playing it. It's not one of my favorite games. The Castlevania franchise isn't one of my sort of franchises, unfortunately. So I'm sure those Castlevania nut jobs going, oh my god, you must have Castlevania posters and all the games, and yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not a Castlevania guy. It doesn't mean I don't enjoy the games, but I'm more of a Resident Evil guy. I just love the Resident Evil franchise. One of my favorite PlayStation 1 games of all time is Resident Evil 1, the original. A chill sandwich. Yeah, I'm sorry, but Resident Evil is perhaps one of my favorite games of all time and one of my favorite franchises of all time. And you know, I mean, if I had to choose between playing Castlevania Sympathy of the Night and Resident Evil 1, I'd go for Resident Evil 1. But it doesn't mean that I don't like Castlevania Sympathy of the Night. I'm not saying, oh, it's horrible, it's terrible. I'm just saying that I prefer Resident Evil 1 because that's my bread and butter. But I'm sure Castlevania Sympathy of the Night, like Johnny here, is his favorite, and I'm sure this game is one of your favorites as well. But for me, Resident Evil 1 is totally awesome. Along with all the other Resident Evil games, of course, released on the PlayStation 1 and PlayStations altogether. Yeah, this was totally cool. Enjoyed it very much. But yeah, if you like this video, make sure to give a like, comment down below, make sure to subscribe to my channel if you enjoy my content. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.